Welcome to the 2.0 Grandma Podcast, a space created by a grandma for grandmas and all about grandmas. Our mission is clear: to empower and support grandmas as they redefine, realign, and redesign their lives.
Today's grandmas do not look like our typical grandmas from back in the day, okay? We are doing a whole new thing. I said, so that's really what my organization is about, highlighting those women that just happen to be grandmas, but who are still living their lives.
Oh, amen.
Right?
Amen.
Away.
I mean, I have a lot to do. But if you look around me, it is surrounded by things like I'm surrounded by things like this.
Right. Oh, that's cute. Happy Valentine's Day.
Right? It's my birthday and Valentine's Day, so she gets it's all one day. Very exciting.
That's good. That's good. Well, let me welcome you, Joanne. This is a pleasure to meet you. When I read your bio, I'm like, wow. So again, like I said, my virtual assistant is very good at finding people that connect to what we're doing. And so I'm just very blessed to have her in my life. I really am. And very, very excited that she found you, because I love what you're doing. So let me tell you what I titled this episode, right? When I read your bio, the kids these days, they say something like, how kids always take words and chop it up and everything, because that's the generation we're living in, right? I mean, the times that we're living in right now. So I've heard this expression, life be lifin'. Have you heard that expression?
I have not, but I like it.
I know, right? And I said, ooh, I know the ideal title for this episode. I'm going to call it Life Be Lifin'. And the thing is, like you, I'm saying it's the art of lifing, because you figured out a way to not let life get you down, even though it be lifing or whatever, right? Because sometimes,
although it tried.
Yes, life will try you. It will try you. And I love what you said about how you turn that into hopes and dreams and smiles and all that. Yeah, I love that. So thank you for being our guest today on the 2.0 Grandmas podcast. And again, I'm very delighted that you are here. And my first question is always, who is Joanne Greene? And then I want to ask about Joanne Greene's grandchildren, now that I know she's a grandma.
So who Joanne Greene is well, it depends on if you want a sentence, a paragraph.
You tell me whatever you want to share.
A soliloquy.
Okay.
I am these days, I am. It's so interesting because sometimes I describe myself as an author and a podcast host and a former broadcaster, but that's only one tiny sliver of my identity. I am a girlfriend. I am a mother. I am a wife. I am a grandmother. I am a spiritual person. I am optimistic and energetic and enthusiastic about everything. And I love dogs. As you can see, mine is positioned herself perfectly in the background here.
Right. She's like a movie star dog. Right.
She is. She
knows
thinks
where the camera is and everything.
Oh yeah. She says, I love a good Zoom. That's what she So I am many things, but what I have to say, Marsha, is the older I get, the happier I am. And I think that's because the older we get, the more we know and accept ourselves, and the less we care about what other people think.
Yes. And people don't get that. People don't always get that. I say to my daughter said yesterday, so she has a 2-year-old, and I laugh because we all know how 2-year-olds are, right? And when you're the parent of a 2-year-old, it's different from being the grandparent of a 2-year-old.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And you can laugh, so my daughter said something and I said, I'm just so happy about this point in my life. Oh, I know what I told her. I said, after I finished my grades and everything for the semester, I took one whole day and I slept, and I got up, went to bed, came back, slept again. And then I watched TV and then I slept again. And she said, man, I wish I could sleep. So, because she has a 2-year-old, and I get it. But I laughed at her. She said, it's not funny, mommy. I said, I know, but honey, I've been where you are. And I feel so good. I am the happiest that I've ever been in my life right now. And
Me
I
too.
said,
Me
because
too.
I
And
don't
I
really
just
deal
turned
with the baby.
70.
Oh my God, you look so awesome.
Thank you.
Oh my
Thank
God.
you. It's I know what you mean about taking care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I was always a person in constant motion, and now I nap. I
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
chill on my bed in the middle of the afternoon
Yes, if I want to.
if I want to, and if I have the time. And if I'm going out at night, I darn well better take a rest
Right,
afternoon,
right.
right? So it's it's really a privilege to be aging. A lot of
Yeah.
people say, oh, I hate aging. Aging's the worst. Au contraire, I think, my siblings didn't have the opportunity to age. They both died young. And I feel every day, with every little wrinkle I notice or whatever, it's okay. It's
Yes,
okay. I earned it. I earned every
yes.
wrinkle. I earned my feeling tired. I earned all of it.
Yes, yes, and yeah, and there's something that the pastor said on New Year's Eve night when we went to church. He said, "I counted." He said, "We need to get this mindset. Count it all joy, the wrinkles, the tiredness, the whatever, the joy, the happiness, the whatever goes on. Count it all joy, because guess what? When you think about it, at the end of the day, really, it's about your mindset. Whether you want to be negative Nelly." you know, or if you want to be positive Paula or
Right.
whatever,
A
right?
lot of it is, feeling so many of us feel like victims. And
Mm,
I think I've had, my share of challenges, as we all have. You don't get to this
yeah,
age without injuries, illnesses, despair, losses, all of it. And what I've learned is to figure out what serves me, so to sit and say, poor me, this does not serve you.
right,
To
right.
see, to look inside of every challenge and say, where's the opportunity for growth,
Yes.
right? Where is the opportunity for me to become a better person with this?
Mm-hmm,
How can I get through this? One of the main ways is gratitude, is
mm-hmm.
counting your blessings. Such an age old adage. And I remember my mom would say it and I would roll my eyes,
Yeah.
counting your blessings is the best. You cannot feel sorry for yourself and feel grateful at the same time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Another thing I speak about a lot is this idea of this too shall pass.
Yes,
Whatever you're going through at
yes.
any given moment, the next moment's going to be different. It might be worse, it might be better, but it's going to be different. So
Mm-hmm,
you're
mm-hmm.
not stuck in
Exactly.
whatever it is. And these are things that we only learn, I think, through experience.
Yes, yes, yeah. And then when you reflect, too, that's another learning opportunity. So I'm a teacher, I'm a college professor, and so I always have my students when we do assignments, even if it's a group assignment in class or whatever, always ask them to reflect, because in reflection, you learn so much about what you did, what you could have done differently, or whatever. And then it is also an opportunity for gratitude. But I did this great, and I'm patting myself on the back because I did this great. Yes, I could do better. And so next time when I think about, I will do this. So that's another thing. I love reflection, and I love the fact that, we need to take the time to, as I said earlier, count it all joy, and then think about something Les Brown says. You either in a problem or on a way out of one,
Oh,
right?
I like
We're
that.
coming into one or we on our way out of one. And that's the ebb and flows of life, right? And we know. And then the other thing, one more thing, and then I'm gonna ask you another question. And there's a gospel song about God did it for me the first time, he will do it again. So I was in this issue, this situation that happened to me, but guess what? God brought me out of it. He helped me to get out of it. And that's what he will do that again for me. So no matter what, count it all joy, and then know that he will help you get through it.
Faith is
Doesn't
important.
want to-
Faith is
Yes.
very important.
Really important. Yes, it gives us a whole new outlook on things. So my next question for you is, I call it this little Graham brag section of my podcast. So grandma gets to brag about her grandchildren. So tell me about the grandchildren.
Oh, well, it's my favorite topic. So
Right.
I am very blessed with three healthy grandchildren. One is 5.5.
Mm.
My granddaughter, and as the mother of two sons and no daughters, it is such a
Ooh.
treat to have a girl.
Oh, I know. I know.
And well, let's just put it this way. She is filled with I'm trying to think of a nice way to say piss and vinegar, but
Ah, it's
so
better.
she's in transitional kindergarten, TK, and she's already been sent to the principal's office. So she's probably going to be a CEO of some corporation someday. She can tell everybody where they need to go. She can manipulate any situation to her advantage.
I love
She was born negotiating.
Okay.
Well, she's got a whole plan, but she's curious about everything. She's learning every minute of every day. She's just such a joy.
All
And
signs of intelligence,
I
highly
so
intelligent.
I
Yeah.
think so. I think, her dad is my younger of two sons, and he was a challenge to raise, and he is a force to be reckoned with. And I think she inherited a lot of that. Then she has a brother who just turned 3, and he's a natural born comedian already. Um, he's a wild man, and I cannot get enough of him either. I live in Northern California, just north of San Francisco, and my kids and grandkids all live in Los Angeles.
Okay.
It's an hour flight or a 6-hour drive.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wait for a reason to go down there. And I'm there every month to 6 weeks for sure, if not more. I want right of first refusal on any babysitting job. If they get an invitation to go away to a wedding for a weekend, I'm there. And
Okay.
my husband is every bit as there with me, and we share all of it. And then we have the brand new baby,
Ooh.
3-month-old Luca, who
Oh,
just born in February, and he is doing well. And his parents have decided that they're going to do the one and done. So my family is now complete with
yeah.
these grandchildren who all live very close to each other, and they will, I suspect, in some ways almost grow up as siblings because they live just 2 miles apart. And Axel, who's the 3-year-old, will be teaching Luca all the ropes, I think. And it's so interesting because the home in which my 2 grandchildren live is, loud and chaos. And the home in which my 3-month-old grandson lives right now, at least for the moment, is very quiet and contained. So it's like very opposite.
Different places, right?
But that's largely because when you get a 3-year-old and a 5.5-year-old, and they're always conspiring. They're always working together, and
Oh, but that's good
they
because
have a
I have 3 children, and the oldest one and the middle one are boys, and they always conspire. And then when the little girl came along with the baby, the middle one and her, they always spout, and now they're like besties. So it's just so funny how they end up like that. And sometimes I look at them and I laugh, and they're like, "Why are you laughing?" I'm like, "Because I remember you guys win."
Absolutely. Do they live near you?
My son does. He lives maybe about an hour and a half away. My other son lives about maybe an hour, and my daughter lives in DC, which is about 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours from me. So
And where are
they're
you?
all relatively close. I'm in Virginia, in
That's not
Hampton.
bad. We'll
Not,
take it.
yeah. So they're all very, very close. And so I get to see the grands, and now the grands are teenagers for the most of them,
Oh
except
my
the
gosh.
2-year-old. Yes. So yeah. And that 2-year-old, I tell you, is bringing me so much joy because I miss the little, when the other ones were little, there's the 2-year-old and then there's a 12-year-old. So
Oh,
there's a
wow.
huge gap in there. And so the 12-year-old, you know how 12-year-olds are, they're more into their peers now. And, and I was like, I remember she's granddaughter. And I remember when she would come over to the house and she said, Grandma, let's go to Dollar Tree. So I would give her a budget. I said, okay, you have $10 to spend or $5 to spend or whatever. She would go in there, she would take her time and she would get it. What's my budget again? And then she would pick herself. So funny. And and everything that she picked, she was very deliberate and intentional about what she selected and all. It was so funny. But we had such a good time doing that. And
We have
then
done the same thing. We have
right.
a dollar store here, right?
Yes,
It
yes,
was
yes.
my husband who did it first, took her. She's
Uh-huh.
sitting in the cart and it was $10. And she would look at something and turn it around and then put it back. I mean, a very,
Yes,
studious shopper.
yes. But those are good skills for them to gain. And so that's one of the reasons why I did it. I said, now let's figure out, you have a budget. You get to decide though what you want for your money, but you cannot exceed this amount. All
So
right.
there's
And so
math involved.
exactly, decision making, all those things. And so that's good for them. And so I told my daughter, I said, with the 2-year-old, she took him to Dollar Tree one day. So funny. She said he almost lost his mind, all the stuff he saw, right? So it was so funny. And I said, yeah, I said, so that's going to have to be one of our little trips. But Tatiana is my granddaughter's name that I used to take in there all the time. And I tell you, we had so much fun. And she said, Grandma, you are my best friend. And now at 12, it's good. I'm lucky if I can get her off the phone enough to talk to me. It's so different.
It's
And I
so
told
different, and you'd have to have a much bigger budget if you took her
her,
shopping.
exactly right. We're talking 100, right? So we don't go shopping that much. So, but
Then
sometimes
you'd be arguing about the little crop tops and
right,
the
right. You don't need that. You don't need to wear that. Oh, and she even talked about the makeup thing because some of her peers are wearing. I said, well, you know what, Tati? I said, here's the thing. I think sometimes girls wear makeup, but just because their friends wear it. I said, but if you get a good skincare regimen. So I went out and I bought some skincare and I did that and I shared that with her. And I said, now you take this home and you use that. I said, if it somehow burns your skin, whatever, it's supposed to be, um, uh, what did you call it? What do you call it? Organic, yeah, organic. And so I said, but if anyway, if it burns your skin, then you let me know. We'll throw that away. We'll try something else. And she did. And and I said, so I asked her a couple of weeks, said, how did you like it? How did it work? Oh, Grandma, it was so good. And I've been using. I said, good. So so I'm still in her life, but the things that we talk about and the things we do are different now.
Yeah, and also, I think we need to counteract as grandparents some of the messages that they're getting
Mhm.
online and everywhere else, particularly girls, that it's all about beauty and shift
Right.
that to it being all about health. So for
Yes.
my daughter-in-law actually told me she really appreciated my approach to aging as a model for her daughter because so many women are, constantly wanting to get plastic surgery or Botox or all of these. I'm not doing any of that, but
Right. Right.
I I'm really eating well. I have a fitness routine,
Mhm.
always out in nature, walking. And she said that's just such a better, I mean,
Approach. Yes,
you
it
don't
is.
even have to say anything, just do that and she'll
Exactly.
see it and I'll
Yes.
do it. She sees me working out and it's all, but these messages are really rough, I think, on
Yes,
girls.
they
And
are.
having raised boys, I didn't have to deal with that as much, but I
Mhm.
see it now and it's
Yes. Yeah, it's so different for girls. You're right. It really is. And so, but yeah, those grandchildren thing, we could talk about that forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. But I really want to get into your platform, what you're doing now, because I read you're an author, you've been a broadcaster, radio, and TV. Wow. So
a
tell me,
long time ago, though, not when I was this age.
right. But then, so then you transitioned that into podcasting now.
Podcasting is basically radio with free distribution. And I was in radio for many years, both my husband and I. That's how we met. We were
Ah,
working in, I actually started out in R&B and black radio, went to rock
really?
and roll radio. Yeah, boy, do I have stories. Boy, do I have
Like
from the
you met
70s.
some of the R&B folks, some of the folks like,
Oh, yeah.
oh
Oh, yeah.
wow.
I worked at a wonderful radio station in Berkeley, California in the 70s, and
Ooh.
everyone came through.
Earth,
It
Wind, and
was,
Fire?
of course,
Oh my gosh.
of
Yeah.
course. Because, they'd have a new album and then they'd be interviewed on the radio. You remember how that all
Mhm,
used to
mhm.
work. I
Yes.
don't have no idea. I don't even listen to the radio anymore now. I just
Mm.
listen to Spotify or whatever I
Right,
want to listen
right,
to. But in those days, there was no other option. So if you were into music, and everybody was into music, right?
right.
I
Right.
mean, there was no internet. Now I say
Right.
these things to my granddaughter, and she's like, "What?"
Right. Well, how
But
did
it
you
was,
live?
radio was really it. And so I did that for like 25 years. And then for a period of time, I did freelance work where I created programs on audio that were of use, for instance, to a corporation trying to get the word out to their customer base or their sales force. And the big problem was always how to distribute it, how to
Right.
get the content into people's hands, onto people's tape machines or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And what podcasting did, it has eliminated the concern about distribution because, as you know, we just put our content out there and then we hope people find it, or we try to
Right.
figure out ways to tell them how to find it. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was a natural transition. If you were a person on the radio, and I did talk shows and interview shows, and I was so fortunate, so blessed to interview so many extraordinary people, many of whom are no longer with us, and,
Mm-hmm.
and now when I say, oh yeah, I interviewed that person, whoever it happened to be. I was actually just yesterday, a friend of mine posted something online, which was a Maya Angelou quote. And I
Uh,
wrote, yeah, I had the opportunity to interview her. And she was like, you did? And it was, before she was a national hero, but she
mm,
was every bit as inspirational and brilliant. And
mm-hmm.
I mean, even in the course of talking, to speak to a poet is different than to speak to a regular person. There's a
Mm-hmm.
cadence, there's a rhythm. You remember
Yeah.
very distinctly, she was sort of tapping the table as there was a whole it was another level.
Oh
And
wow.
so I had, this good fortune really
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
of being able to highlight people, but also issues that needed to be dealt with. And that was really my focus all through the years were issues. And, I was early for my era, feminist. And
Mhm.
so many of the issues had to do with women's rights and in the 70s, I had women's talk shows about rape crisis centers and shelters for battered women and equal pay and, the just so many different issues that now a lot of which we're getting closer to equality, but
Right. Yeah. You probably never ever will in
well,
this, which is
I
unfortunate.
hope not. I hope we will. I
I
really
hope so,
do.
yes, but I don't see it happening. But
I mean,
anyway, let me ask this question. So, do you know the name Lenny Williams?
yeah, the drummer.
No, 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 no. Singer. You remember Tower of Power?
Oh, they're an Oakland band. So,
Yes, yes,
right.
yes,
Yeah. I mean, they were around the radio stations all the time.
yes.
They're
So
local.
I had the pleasure of interviewing him recently. And his song, Because I Love You, and in my community, we call him the what is it? The oh. So one of his songs, and the name of the song is Because I Love You. but he does that, and a lot of people have sampled that song. So when I interviewed him, he said, and I said, when I told my family that I was interviewing Lenny Williams, they all lost their minds. And he laughed, right? I said, even my children, because we used to play the song. My husband and I used to play the song when they were little. I said, and so everybody knows that song. I said, and then I told my sister-in-laws and my sister, and they were like, oh my God, because his song is so, it's just well known. And so he kind of laughed about it, right? And he said, yeah, he said, I have gotten rich off that one song because so many people have sampled that song.
That is
It's
great.
amazing.
I
So
mean,
the
it's
music industry these days is so different than,
so different. It's so
yeah.
different. And one of the big untold stories, or not told enough, is how the record companies over the years did not appropriately compensate the
Mm-hmm.
musicians or the writers.
Mm-hmm.
Motown, was notorious for that. I mean, those
Mm-hmm.
folks, they were a big family. Everybody loved each other and knew each other
Mm-hmm.
really well. But um, yeah, they did not necessarily get treated with the
Mm-hmm.
financial rewards that.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the kids these days that are doing music, they're doing it totally different. I've been interviewing a lot of them. I write for this online magazine, and it's all about music. And when I was in college, and I would have never thought that I would be doing this right now in my life. But I was in college, I was on the newspaper, the college newspaper, and I would write about the music, about different songs and that sort of thing at that time. And I had the pleasure at one of our homecomings to interview Earth, Wind, and Fire. I almost lost my mind, by the way. That's why when you said music of the 70s, I was like, Earth, Wind, and Fire. So I had a chance to meet them, and I wrote about the experience and everything for homecoming. But what I'm finding these days is the folks who are currently doing this, they're doing their own thing. They're starting their own production companies and everything. And they're cutting out these, the Motowns and the Clive Davises and all those folks and
Yeah.
doing their own thing and producing their own beats and everything. So
Yeah,
it's a
it's a
total,
very different day. It's complete
yes.
different day. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. And that's good for them because now, they don't have to worry about, someone taking them for granted or taking their royalties or any of that. It's
All these industries have changed so much. When I decided to write a book, I had to really learn about the publishing industry, which is completely different now than it ever was before.
mhm,
So
mhm.
now, for instance, to get a publishing deal, you have to have an Instagram following of like 1 million people or something. It's
Oh,
a
wow.
they can't take a chance on someone who doesn't already have a real base audience
Mm,
who's gonna buy that book. So,
mhm,
and I'm not a famous person, and I'm a, older white woman. This is not who is, the sexy, for the industry these
mhm,
days.
mhm,
So then I had options of publishing with a hybrid press, which is a combination. So you get the distribution of a traditional publisher, but instead of them paying you, you pay them.
mhm,
But then you get a higher percentage of the sales of the books. So if your book does well, you can do well.
mhm.
And the third option is self-publishing, which
Yeah,
anybody can do.
anybody can
But
do. Yep.
then that's it. It's on Amazon and that's it.
Mhm.
I mean, it's
Right.
nowhere else. It can't be
Right.
purchased
And you
in
have to
bookstores.
drive people there. So you have to,
Well,
and you have
you
to
do
cut.
that anyway.
Yeah.
You do anyway. Like I have had to, people have said to me, what are you doing now? It's been
Mhm,
almost a year since my book's been out. And I said, I'm marketing my book. It's like a
mhm,
full-time job. I
mhm,
have
mhm,
to be on podcasts and still do speaking engagements and be at bookstores for events and women's clubs and sort of whatever the low hanging fruit is, whatever audiences I think I can muster up to be
mhm,
a speaker. But what
mhm,
I'm speaking about is I think the reason that you contacted me in the first place, that it's really about how to live a meaningful life, how to
mhm,
deal with life's inevitable challenges we are all going to face. We are all going to face illness, injury, loss, if not ourselves and those we love. We're going to have disappointments. Some of us are going to will be fired from jobs, or we'll lose jobs, or we'll fail at a marriage, or we will, hopefully not most of us, but some of us will lose our homes. I mean, these are things that happen to people. And how do we become more resilient? That's what I'm really talking about, because I had a 10-year period in my life, Marsha, that I would wish on no one. And it was as though I was being tested, and I kept looking up to the heavens and saying, really? Really? Now this? Okay. And my next response was, okay, let's do this.
Yes.
Let's do this. And when I said, let's do this, I was talking about myself and everything I could muster from all of my resources, which includes a very loving community, because you get back what you put in, right?
Yeah.
If you're part of a community and you take care of the people in that community, when you're in need, they will take care of you.
Yes.
Family, friends, religious leaders, all of those things. And thankfully, I was able to say to myself, so I'll tell you what happened. Okay. So, and I'm going to condense this in a very short amount of time. I went through, in a 4-year period, I lost my mother, my sister, and my brother. I lost my mother and my sister within 5 months. That felled me. That nearly broke me in pieces. After losing my brother, I was the sole surviving member of my original family, and the matriarch, having been the baby always by a long shot. I went from being the baby to being the matriarch of this very large family. My brother had 5 kids. My sister had 2. There were lots of grandchildren and people scattered all over the country. So I was the keeper of the family, of the traditions, of our heritage, all of that. And then one day, leaving work, October 3rd, 2012, I was going home a little bit early in order to be comfortable on the couch to watch the first debate between then candidate Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. I was a big Obama supporter. And as I was crossing the street in front of my place of work, in a crosswalk in broad daylight, a car had stopped for me. And as I got directly in front of her, a truck came at 50 miles an hour. Lord knows what he was doing. Slammed into her. She slammed into me. I flew up onto the hood of her car. She was catapulted about 50 feet down the street with me on the hood, my head banging against her windshield. And then I fell off onto the street. And all I knew was that I was alive. And I was in shock, and I was hospitalized for 5 days. I had 4 pelvic fractures, and the whole right side of my body was crushed. And it was the first time in my life that I was completely dependent on others. I couldn't do anything to take care of myself. I almost died a couple times in the hospital from bleeding out. And the full recovery was a year and a half, but the real intense, serious recovery was many months. And I had to learn so many things. I had to learn how to be still. I'd never been still in my life. I've been a person like a whirling dervish. I've been a person in constant motion. I've been a person who needed to do in order maybe not to feel. Maybe in order to feel that I was okay, that I was good enough. Suddenly I find myself, I can't feed myself. I can't do anything. So I have to ask for help. I have to get through each day. I have to deal with the trauma of reliving the moment of the accident and the fear and all of that. And I had to develop a skill set that has served me really well since. Since that time, I've dealt with a cancer diagnosis and 2 subsequent surgeries. I'm fine, but that might have not been the case. I mean, I'm absolutely fine. But here's the thing. This is life.
Yeah.
Nobody escapes it, right? Nobody escapes it. If you haven't lost anybody and you've made it to 50, Bless you.
I
Awesome.
know, right? Yeah.
About to end. It's about to end, and these we can fold when these things happen to us. We can, cash our chips in.
Yep, yep, yep.
I was 58 when this accident happened, and nobody thought I would go back to work. And I was like, why wouldn't I go back to work? I love my work. My work is meaningful. What am I going to do? Stay home and twiddle my thumbs? I mean, I eventually retired from my job when COVID happened, but by then I was deep into the book and I could really focus on writing this book. And I was also doing 2 podcasts at the time. I mean,
Wow.
life is about meaning and making meaning and having fun. I mean, a day without talking to my girlfriends, forget it. A day without getting out in nature with my dog, not going to happen. For me, not having a job just means I get to do whatever I want whenever I want. And so I'm continuing to count my blessings. I'm continuing to remember that whatever disappointment I'm experiencing in whatever, my children might not behave, and go figure, they might not behave in exactly the way I would like them to every time. Amazing. I just am practicing all these skills that I developed by necessity to get through a trauma. And they're life skills that I hope other people can develop without going through a trauma. So I wrote this book called By Accident, a Memoir of Letting Go. And part of what I've let go of is the illusion that I can control things. Because we can control how we respond to the things that happen to us, but things are going to happen to us.
Yes,
You
they
have
are.
to know that. And you can't stop it. You can't change it. I mean, it's like that serenity prayer, right? You have to know what you can change. You have to have the courage to know the difference.
Yes.
But you can always control your response. And so one day after my accident, I was feeling really sorry for myself. I was in a lot of physical pain, a lot of emotional pain. And a dear friend of mine said something that I will never forget. She said, Joanne, you can visit the pity pot, but you can't be packing your bags and moving in.
Oh, that's a
Good one, right?
Yeah.
It's a good one. So, yes, feel the pain, have a good cry, put on a piece of music that's going to, you can wail with it.
Excited, yeah.
And then dust off yourself and
Yeah.
get up in whatever, in those days I couldn't actually get up, but I could sit up maybe in the hospital bed and remember that there's joy in the world. There's, we choose life. I'm Jewish, and this is one of our basic teachings. Choose life.
Yes. Yes.
Always, always, always. And
well, that is beautiful. It's a beautiful story with a beautiful, I won't say ending, but a beautiful, wherever you are right now. And I like that. And I think it will give people hope because you're right. Things are going to happen to us. Like Les Brown says, we're either in a problem or coming out of one, right? And it's all.
Here's the book. I have all these little things in it because I read things to people, but it's By Accident, a Memoir of Letting Go. It's available in paperback, audiobook where I read it. Also an ebook. So all different ways you can get it on Amazon. It may be in your local bookstore, or if not, they can order it.
Okay, excellent. Now tell me about your podcasts.
Well, I was doing a podcast that I've recently retired, but there are, I think, 60 something episodes up, and they're all what we call evergreen. They're just as good now as the day we put them up. That one, it's a little tongue in cheek, so get ready for this. The title of it was All the F Words, and the F words were any word that begins with the letter F. So family, friendship, fantasy, feng shui, fanaticism, fundamentalism, femininity. I mean, they were issues, real solid issues. And
I like
I had a
the
co-host. So I had a co-host who was a fellow writer and
Mhm.
friend who's 30 years younger than me. So
Mhm.
we said it was a 2-generational take on all
Mhm.
these issues. And quite
Huh?
often, because of our different generations, we would think of a subject in a very different way. So I'll give you an example. Filters. I thought about filters as the different filters we use in life, we put up on ourselves. She
Mhm.
thought of it as the filters you use on Instagram,
Social media, right?
social media filters.
Right.
So interesting. And there were
Yeah.
many cases like that where we saw something the same way or we saw it completely differently. So that was an interesting one. And sometimes we would have it be about an issue of the day, like we did one on firearms, um,
Uh,
and all about
oh, I
the,
like that.
we
Very
there were just,
relevant.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that was that show. So
Now let
they're
me ask you
there, they're available.
before you leave that. So you and another female, but age difference, a big age difference. So now, I like that idea because I've been toying with the idea of doing a podcast. Did you do two at the same time? Two different podcasts at the same time?
No, we would record one, and they were
No, 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 no.
initially they
No, I mean, were you with her and then you had your own?
yes, I launched my own
Okay,
maybe 6 months after
okay.
we launched that one. And the reason I launched my own are very short. They're under 5 minutes, and
Ah,
they
oh,
they're my micro essays set to music.
ah,
So
okay. That's
I wanted
music.
to,
Yes, I read that. And I said,
yeah.
well, I want to know more about that. Okay. So tell me
So
about micro essays set to
they
music.
are the reason I did it is because when you're an author, you have to develop a platform. You have to build an audience for your work so that when
Hmm.
your book comes out, people will know about you. And in this case, I wanted them to know about my writing,
Hmm.
memoir style, but short. And
Hmm.
um, in radio, often I had done short features. So I was used to writing in shorter form. And let me tell you, writing a book is not something that you can take lightly. It is an enormous undertaking. And I took classes and I had writing coaches. And I mean, and it's an expensive proposition. So I'm not writing another book, but I am continuing to write these short essays. And I'm having a blast with it. I'm in a global women's writing group, and we used to meet every week, all during the pandemic, and now we meet twice a month, and we have a prompt. And the
Hmm.
prompt can be, for instance, last week's prompt was write about a childhood fear that you either outgrew or didn't.
Hmm.
So I wrote a whole piece. I used to be afraid of cats. And it's
Hmm.
it's a very funny story how I got over my fear of cats. And and they're irreverent and funny. And I've written about school lunch, just my memories of school lunch. I've written about I wrote a lot about turning 70 and um in a variety of different ways. I recently did a civil rights tour of the South in a group of people where we visited Selma, Montgomery, Birmingham, and Atlanta. And
Hmm.
I wrote about that and what that meant to me to hear first person testimonies from people
Hmm.
on
Hmm.
the Edmund Pettus Bridge on Bloody Sunday who were in the park.
Oh,
This
wow.
this 90-year-old bishop who, I mean, just an incredible human being
Hmm.
who's been a civil rights activist all his life. And
Hmm.
he was the last person to see Martin Luther King in Birmingham. He drove him to the airport the night he flew to Memphis and died. So just it's called In This Story with
Hmm.
Joanne Greene. There's stories from my rock and roll radio days, from
Wow.
their stories of, they're just like stories that didn't fit into my book because they weren't
Uh-huh.
they weren't part of that story, but
Right.
And it's my legacy. So
Mhm.
not that many people download these things as we know, there are so many podcasts now, it's crazy.
Yeah,
But there'll be some day maybe when one or more of my grandchildren will say, "Oh my God, this is my grandma's
yeah,
stories." And they're
yes,
all there and they're available on
yes.
the internet. And I'm working on one now that is based on something that happened last week with my granddaughter. My grandkids were here. We took them to Muir Woods, which is this incredible, I believe it's a national historic thing. It's the redwood trees, the
Mm,
tallest
mm,
trees in
mm,
the world. And
mm.
if you ever make your way out to the Bay Area, first of all, call me because I will host you. But
Okay.
besides, you must see these trees. They take your breath away. They're old, 600-year-old trees. And we're leaving. The kids loved it, and they really got it, and how magnificent and this was, and special, and where they were whispering, in the forest. It's great. We're walking out, and there's an abandoned phone booth with nothing in it, but
Mm,
it's a shell of a phone booth. And
right.
my granddaughter said, "What's this?" And I
Right.
try explaining to a 5-year-old what a phone. Well, honey, it used to be if you had to make a phone call, you had to find one of these booths, and you had to have coins, and you had to put the coins in a slot, and then you could make one phone call. And she's going, "What?" So I'm writing a piece now of all the things that used to be, and like, when did I become that age of saying, when I was your age, I had to walk across the room to
Right.
change the television channel.
Right. Right. Right.
And there's,
Or
and
my mom used to say, when I was in school, we had to walk to school. There was no buses to come pick us up. That's what they're like,
I
what?
walked to school, Marsha. I walked to school. I walked a mile to high school
Really?
every day. Absolutely, there was no
Really?
bus.
When my mom says that, and we're like, what? There were, why is there no buses? Right? No,
I
anyway.
don't know why, but there weren't. I mean, there was no school bus. I don't know. There were just enough elementary schools, I guess, and this was in Boston, where it was
Mm.
freezing and snowing and
Yeah, and then she would
rain.
say,
Yeah,
yeah, and our shoes, what would she say? And we were so poor that our shoes didn't even have soles. The bottom of the shoes missing and stuff like that. We're like, wow.
I
So
told
you can't even fathom some of the things that people say that they went through as kids.
I had to
But
wear a skirt to
yeah,
school. It could be below zero, and I'm wearing knee socks, bare thighs.
yes,
We
yes,
were not
yes.
allowed to wear pants.
Right. Well, I know I went to Catholic school as a kid, so we had to wear uniforms.
Oh,
And I always said, when I grow up, I'm going to have a lot of clothes because I hated the uniform. Everybody looked the same, right? And you had to wear the long socks, the Oxford shoes, and the plaid skirts. But the skirts were long; they were below our knees. And the green, and it was green, that dark, dark, dark green. Not even it wasn't olive. It wasn't, Kelly green. It was a dark, dark green, like a forest green, I think is what they might call it now. Yeah. So I remember those days too. But anyway, yeah. So, but I've enjoyed talking to you, Joanne, and I'm gonna make sure that I get your book either probably on Kindle. I'm gonna try. You did you say it was on Kindle? Yeah, I'm getting it on
absolutely.
Kindle so I can listen to it in the car and things like that.
No, well,
And
Kindle is you read it. Audiobook is you can listen
yeah,
to.
Audible. I have
Audible, you have
yeah.
an Audible? Yeah.
I have Audible, so I can check it out there. So, because I like to listen to books in the car when I'm driving, especially long distance. But I wanted to ask you about the other podcast because I've been thinking about doing a podcast, being a co-host. But I want to do it with the guy so that we can do like a grandma grandpa thing and go
That-
back and forth, right? So that's what I was thinking. I just got to find the person, but I was really thinking about doing that because I think that'll be a lot of fun. So,
Totally. And at
yeah,
this point in our lives, we should be having fun.
right. No matter what, it
Having
should
fun
be
and also giving back. That's the other thing
yes, definitely.
at
Yes,
this point
yes,
in
yes,
my life, looking
yes.
at the homeless, and just different things like that that really make me, the other thing I just want to say real quick is a lot of people showed up for me. And one of the things that I I said, I made a list of what I had learned from experience.
Mm-hmm.
I have it on the inside of my medicine cabinet. So every time I open the thing, I see
Oh,
it. And one of the things is I want to structure my life from this point forward so that I always have enough time to show up for people.
oh,
You know,
yes.
drive them to the doctor, pick them, whatever it takes, bring a meal,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because there's nothing more important really than all of
Mm-hmm.
us. If we were all taking care of each other instead of fighting, instead of
Yes.
what's going on today,
Yes.
I'm so pained by all of this. You know, you're this or you're this. No, we're all people. We all want the
Right.
same
We're all
things.
human beings, really. That's really what it boils down to. Until we all acknowledge that, once we all acknowledge that, the world will be a much, much better place, I believe. Yes.
If they,
And
you know, if they
I'm
just let
hopeful that
grandmas run the show, we would
I
know.
know, right? Right. And I don't know if you know this or not, but yesterday I heard on the Sherry Shepherd show that how they did the Bachelor, the Golden Bachelor? Now they're doing the Golden Bachelorette. I'm like, yes, it's our turn, right?
I didn't see the Golden Bachelor, but maybe I'll watch the Golden Bachelorette.
Yes, the Golden Bachelorette. She gets to pick from, I don't know, I think they say they have 20 or 25 men that she'll get to pick from, like the guy did. And so one of my grandmas who I interviewed very early when I started doing the podcast was one of that was on that show.
Oh, fun.
Yes, and so it was fabulous. So I watched it to support her. And I heard yesterday about this, so I'm like, okay, so now I've got to make sure. And the one of the women that was on the show, I think her name is Joan. She's the one that's going to be the Bachelorette.
What
So it's fabulous. Yes, it's so fabulous. But thank you so much, Joanne. It's been a delight to talk to you. And let people
likewise.
know how they can get in touch with you. What is your website, your Facebook, Instagram, all that?
Absolutely. Joanne, JOANNE dash hyphen Greene with an E on the end, GREENE. So that's my website, joanne-greene.com. Facebook, I'm Joanne R. Greene, because there was another Joanne Greene.
Mm.
And yeah, and if you go to my website, you can always email me through that.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to start following you, and I hope you'll follow me back so
With
that we
pleasure.
can see what each other are doing. Okay. And
Sounds
there may
great.
be opportunities for us to collaborate. Maybe sometimes I do webinars, and I think it's just so important for women, other grandmas to hear the things that we've experienced in our lives, and then maybe they can extract some lessons from that.
Great. I'm
And
always available.
yes. Okay. And maybe even interviewing you for my third book, second book. Well, okay, second book, third book, fourth book. Okay. And the reason I say that because here's what I did. I self-published my first one. The second one, I got a publisher to help me, a person who's a publisher to help me with the second one. Then the third one, I'm focusing on grandmas who are raising their grandchildren.
Thankfully, I'm not doing that.
Right, right, right. That's what I said. I said, praise God, I'm not doing that. But there are people there, and I want to highlight that because I think it's so important that we help, and shine a light on that because there's support that they need. So I'm
My
doing that.
husband was raised by his grandparents.
Okay, okay, okay.
His parents were tragically killed in a car
God.
accident when he was 7.
Oh, wow.
His grandparents
Yeah.
moved into the family home,
Oh,
and
wow.
they were immigrants. They didn't read
Oh,
or write
wow.
English. It was a tough thing, but
Mm.
with love.
Yes, right. And there are a
Enough
lot of
love.
grandparents. I met a couple the other night that are doing that. So I'm doing a book about that, and I'm interviewing them. And then the fourth book is going to be just another edition of I call it my annual grandma's book, my 2.0 grandma's book. So grandmas like yourself who, as we say, just doing the doggone thing, okay? Out there having fun, living life instead of life living you, right? So yes. But I thank you, Joanne, and I will be back in touch with you about that. And you let me know if you want to be a part of it.
I would love to.
Okay,
Take
thank
care.
you.
Thank you so
All
much
right,
for
take
having
care.
me. It's been a
Oh,
pleasure.
you're welcome. It's been my pleasure too. Take care now. Bye-bye. This has been the 2.0 Grandma podcast. This is Dr. Marsha McLean signing out because guess what? Grandmas, we are fab, honey. This is a show for grandmas, about grandmas, by a grandma. Yes.